Hi, it's Stuart Sutton at 1 Acre Plus Homes. Hope your 23 has started out fantastic. We're going to look at stats for 1 Acre Plus housing. I'm going to share 3 sets. It's not going to take longer. It's not going to be boring. Well, for some of you it might be. But you're going to see where you stand based on these housing stats. And again, 3 sets, but the set that you need to pay attention to, I'm going to point that out. Let's get started. So why would I say we're going to look at 3 sets of stats? Well, this is going to be pretty quick. The first set of stats is the year 22 compared to the year 21. So overall, the number of sales fell about 22%. Not a real big deal because the pool of data is not enormous. It's not like the overall Austin real estate market, from north to south, east to west. It's simply 1 Acre Plus Homes, which is a small percentage of the homes that sell. So 22% less, not a big deal. But the days on the market did go up about 16%. Again, not a huge change. And the average for the year was 31 days. That's extraordinary because typically the 1 Acre Plus market takes over 100 days to sell in a typical year. It takes longer typically for homes on an acre or more than homes in subdivisions. So this is not a big concern either. We're still actually outperforming typical years. The list to sell ratio is the ratio of asking price compared to closed price. In other words, when a seller asks a certain price, what do they actually end up getting at closing? And that actually fell 2.75% in the year 22 compared to the year 21. So if you take the average price home and multiply it by 2.75%, the average seller put that much less in their pocket in 22 compared to 21. So buyers didn't pay as far over asking in 22 as they did in 21. But here's a real bright spot. The average price was nearly 13% above 21. So in 2022, the average price for homes on an acre or more was 12.92% higher. That's double digits. That's pretty amazing. In typical real estate years, we'd see 4 or 5%, and everyone was very happy with that year after year after year after year. Market was very good for a long time. When this frenzy hit, it became, historical, of course, but we've settled back down some, but everyone thinks prices are dropping, but guess what? You still haven't lost that equity that was built up during that 18 to 20 month period. And this is proof that that's the case right here. Now we're going to move on to those other 2 sets of stats. Remember I promised 3? This won't take but a second, but this will really tell the story of 22. Because in 22, we saw 2 different markets. And it was really pretty distinct. The first half of the year and the second half of the year. Let's take a look. I'll show you what I mean. Before July the 1st, it took homes on an acre or more an average of 20 days to sell. Now, everybody thinks, everything sold the first weekend or the first couple days. It's not really the case. Now, just so you know, my run during that frenzied market was about 18 months where every home I put on the market on an acre or more sold in the first weekend. So my average was about 3 days during that run. After July the 1st, however, we saw the days on market go to 47. That is a more than double from the first half. So you see the difference in the first half of the year and the second half of the year. More than double. Now here's another stat that shows the difference. Before July the 1st, the average was well over asking price, 2% over asking price. After July the 1st, homes closed at about 96.67, 3.3% below asking. That's about a 5+% differential. If you figure the average price, which it is, in the 1 Acre Plus market's over 900,000, guess what? That's a big chunk of money that sellers didn't get in the second half of the year just from negotiating. Has nothing to do with prices, from negotiating, because the buyer was in a better position and leveraged their negotiation in the second half of the year compared to the first half of the year. And here's another one that indicates what happened in the first half versus the second half. The price change for homes on the market before they sold was about 1.28% reduction before selling. That didn't mean every house did this. Some houses, of course, didn't reduce their price. But overall, the price change before going under contract was 1.28%. In the second half of the year, 6.17%. So again, calculate that against the average price, and that's a big chunk of change. Home sellers reduced their prices a lot in the second half of the year. Now, you're hearing everyone run around saying prices are dropping, prices are dropping, prices are dropping. And here's an indication. I saw home sellers in the 1 acre plus market drop their price 100, 200, 300, 400,000 before they went under contract. And that makes you think, well, wait a minute. How did it happen that the average price was higher? Was it all because of the first half of the year? Well, no. Before July the 1st, the average price was $927. After July the 1st, the average price was $942. So I've been saying this all along since about July or August. And I wish I probably do have videos that show it, but I'm not going to go look for them. Anyway, the price dropping fear that we're seeing is not necessarily the case in the 1 acre plus market, because what we're seeing is sellers drop their prices to get their home sold. But guess what? Where they're dropping them to is where they should have been to begin with. So the price drops are getting them to where it takes the buyer to make an offer and then close, and that's not much different than the first half of the year. So what does that tell you? Well, it just shows you that a lot of sellers put their home in the market a little bit late, just missed the frenzy, but didn't miss the profits because their sales prices were not much different than the first half of the year. So we keep hearing prices are dropping. We're seeing asking prices drop. The closing prices are not dropping. So your equity run up, all that extra money you made during that 18 to 20 month period is still there. Pretty darn good situation to be in because you own a home on an acre or more. Now, there are some subdivisions in some areas that didn't fare so well during the second half of the year, but the 1 acre plus market held its own pretty well. And I think that's partly because there's an underlying move to get out to more space and not be in subdivisions where houses are so close together. There was sort of an underlying move out to acreage properties when the pandemic hit, and I think that's still going to be an advantage for homeowners who have homes on an acre or more. That market is still going to continue, in my opinion, to be strong. And I'll continue to say that until I see that change. And so far it hasn't. One other thing I'm going to point out real quick, in the real estate industry, there's an 87% failure rate in the first 5 years. So the moral of that is just to seek out someone with experience. As a matter of fact, you could hire a very experienced agent, and they may not have hardly any experience in the 1 acre plus market. But that's something you want to find out through investigating and asking questions. So like I actually have been saying for a while, the asking prices are dropping, but homes on an acre or more are still closing at very strong prices, as proven by the data. I've popped another video up here for you to take a look at. If you ever plan on selling in 23, I think you're going to do well. And this is one of the things we do to make sure that you do. Hope you'll take a look at that. Feel free to subscribe so you'll get notice every time we post a video about homes on an acre or more.